And so when we talk about inclusion and when we talk about diversity and we talk about who's on our teams, we need to think about whose perspective is not in the room. And because I put that perspective in the room, do you know that on our survey to our providers, one of the questions now is, you never saw an email come out and say, hey, we've created this new role. You know, we want to know if anybody might be interested in said position. The position's never posted. What you get is a memo congratulating somebody on, hey, we want to congratulate Sally Johnson. She has taken such and such role, so on and so forth. And these are some of the things that are normalized behavior within the culture of pharmacy, right?
But you know what, Dr. LaKoya, it goes back to, it's not what you know, but it's who you know. And then just to ask a question, do you think that maybe some of those roles, so I think about the people that you work with, you have an idea, if you work with your colleagues for any length of time or any significant length of time, you have an idea, you can see strengths and weaknesses. And so if you are in a leadership position and you have a new initiative or new program that you're trying to plan, wouldn't you want to connect the person that has those particular strengths and qualities to work that program to make sure that to ensure that it's successful? I mean, you wouldn't want to take someone that's not who you've seen and you've witnessed their work. You wouldn't want to take someone that's not performing at the best to throw in that position. So wouldn't you want to pre-select?
So Mariko's playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's great.
To a certain extent, she's right that, you want to choose the best qualified person. And if you have somebody in mind, you want to lean towards that person. But, so in a workforce, how do you balance between what could be considered favoritism versus following the policies? So when do the policies step in where, no, you can't just choose somebody. People got to give other people the opportunity to show their talents and showcase themselves also.
Yes.
So how do you create that fine line where policy is policy?
That is great, oh my gosh, I love that question. I love that question. So interesting. I love policy and procedure. When y'all go to policy and procedure, your girl got that, because I always stay on the policy and procedure. So in certain states, and it is really I would say, even if it's not a rule in the state by the labor market, there are certain business and HR ethics that just exist. So for instance, because I practice in the state of California, California is very, very much about the employee and their labor laws, okay?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you all know, but there's kind of a standard rule that you like for a position to be posted for about 5 days, giving any and everybody ample opportunity to apply to the position, right? And then you select from those candidates, who you're going to interview and so on and so forth, right? That's like the standard process. Did you all know that? Are y'all aware?
I'm familiar with it.
Okay, yeah. So, but if I have already chosen who I want for the position, I can go through that process and put that position out there for anybody to apply. But if I didn't tell anybody the position exists, then I'm only going to have a certain pool of applicants.
Correct.
But
or when I, as a hiring leader at my particular companies, I can post position and say it's for internal applicants only. Even as an internal employee, unless I'm sitting on scrolling all the time looking for a new position,
unless it's advertised,
or I'm getting an alert and it's advertised, I don't even know it exists. So this is where we have to look at it. You have to look at it from a different lens and say, yes, there's a policy and there's a procedure, But if I want what I want, and I have identified what I want and who I want and who's going to play and who's going to say yes, then that is the choice that I have made. And I can do that within this same policy and procedure that you have designed to create equity and equality.
And Dr. LaKoya, there's, going along in the same vein as you, there's also another option that happens. I've seen and experienced when a company has put out a job opening, and then you apply for the job opening, but like you said, they already know who they want. And so even though you may be scrolling through Indeed and you see this job opening and it was just released today, because the hiring person said, this is, I'm just using Sally. I don't know, I'm just using Sally.
Yeah.
I already know Sally. I'm going to hire Sally, but because of policy and procedure, I'm going to open it up to everyone. So everybody can apply. Yes, you go ahead and apply and you waste your time, but I'm still hiring Sally, but I'm just going to make sure I follow this policy and procedure. And that is so frustrating because you wasted your time redoing your resume and submitting it, and then they weren't going to consider it anyway.
Yeah. And I also want to bring up a good point that you just made too, earlier, is that, yes, if you see strengths and talents in someone and you see that, okay, this is a need, this is a position that we need to have, and, and this person would be perfect for it. Just think though, in the process, that while you're just choosing that person and you're only looking, tunnel vision at that person, even if that person could be what you think is perfect for it, in the process, if you're just open to interviewing other applicants, you might find somebody else that completely blows that other person out of the water, and you missed out on top talent because you only have one mindset of who you want in that position. And you have just, you completely missed out on bringing someone in who could really contribute. And let me share with you an example of that. I'm going to share with you a perfect example of that right now. I am I'm a consultant for the CDC Foundation, and I work with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And so I'm working in the COVID-19 therapeutics branch of things for them. It's actually the, what is it called? Public Health Preparedness and Emergency Response branch, but I work on the COVID-19 therapeutics team. And so right now we're in endemic planning. So it's post-pandemic, endemic. What are we doing now to kind of like maintain and sustain? And one of the initiatives that we're working on right now is in that test to treat program that Biden and Harris has put together. We have to say, okay, we have to survey all of our sites and say, who can actually test and give medication right here, right now? You know what I'm saying? Like if a person comes and they are positive, you can dispense the medication. So in that, we're sending out a survey, and it's like, well, what are the different things that we're going to hit in terms of equity? Because everybody's still having this conversation about equity, which is great. And so one of the teams had presented on all the different things that we've been doing per equity. And the big push is to make sure that we have people that are within, right now, we've gotten it down to people are within 10 miles of getting drugs. Okay. Starting with when we first came out, people might be within 50 miles and then 20 miles. We've narrowed the radius to 10 miles. And so we're on it, and they can't really pull data specifically to say, like, they can look at neighborhood and kind of somewhat population, but we can't really say that we're making sure that we're servicing the highest number of marginalized communities. But we're looking at, okay, people are within a 10-mile radius, and this is about as good as we can get. So I'm like, hold on, I got a question. Maybe have we looked at the data to say, within these 10 miles, who has access to public transportation and who does not? Because 10 miles is a lot if you have public transportation, but it's extreme if you don't have public transportation, right? And so the person who was there was like, oh, that's a really good point. That's a great idea, LaKoya. I think so. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If I can get on a bus and I can go to a place and they can treat me right then and there, that's great. If I can't get on the bus with these gas prices, and if I don't have a car and I don't have somebody that's gonna come and pick me up, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, if you're living out in North Carolina, out in the boonies where it's just farmland and sticks, there's no public transportation out there. And we talking about probably a little bit.
And there's no Uber, there's no Lyft, right? So I put that in the room. The reason I was able to put that in the room is because I've used public transportation. I guarantee the people who were in the room with me have not had to depend on public transportation. And so when we talk about inclusion and when we talk about diversity and we talk about who's on our teams, we need to think about whose perspective is not in the room. And because I put that perspective in the room, do you know that on our survey to our providers, one of the questions now is, are you on a public transportation line?
Right.
That question would have never been there if I wasn't in the room to put that thought in someone's head, because if you've never experienced riding public transportation, you don't know to even think that way.
Right.
Representation, I like it.
Representation, yep.
That's it. And it's something that seems so simple, but it's so huge when it comes to our Black and brown communities who don't have $5 to pay for a gallon of gas. They're already struggling.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Diversity.